Hello and welcome back. This is Andre, and in this episode we discuss about the prosperity of nations. We talk about resources, what makes those resources valuable in an old society and in a modern society. But first of all, I wish you a happy new year. I am in the beautiful city of Oradea in Romania, and I've spent the new year here. Now coming back, we discuss about the wealth of a nation and those resources that creates wealth and prosperity in a nation. And the first point is that resources such as oil, such as geography, such as the human capital, those resources become valuable only when a technological shift happens. So take for example geography. In the past, geography in the sense of your geographical location on the map became valuable when people found out how to create ships. Take for example the British. They became an empire when technology became valuable to make ships to conquer the world. Same with the Dutch Empire. Or take for example Turkey. They became an empire where all the trade between Europe and Asia was passing through Turkey. So when some technological evolution happens, that resource became valuable. Take for example oil. It has been in the ground for thousands of years, but it became valuable only 100 years ago when we learned how to use it and how to extract it. And currently this resource that's valuable, it's human capital. This is what brings the wealth and the prosperity to nations. Human capital in the form of skills to people and in the form of well-functioning institutions. Now, in an old world, the wealth and prosperity was solely brought by natural resources, be it natural resources directly. Take, for example, Italy. They have fish, they have great fields, they have the mountains, a natural barrier. Those things help. Take, for example, Egypt and Persia. They had great rivers that helped them grow crops. Now, as time advanced, geography was super important. Take, for example, the British and the Dutch empires. The point being, in an old society, the prosperity of a nation was coming mainly from things that were taken from granted. Things, in a way, given by the God, by nature. They were just there. Now, in a modern society, those things, honestly, they do not matter. And the sole things which brings prosperity is human capital. So prosperity in a modern society is directly proportional with the human capital and with how well the institutions work. And let me address firstly some obvious exceptions, and this is the Middle East countries, because they became rich and prosperous when they found some natural resources, oil. But they had more than that. They had some human capital in the sense that, the emperor, the king, decided to take this wealth and bring it back to increase the amount of human capital in a country. So now they are developing infrastructure, different type of industries, and they are building their educational system. So yes, they had natural resources, but they also had the human capital to use them. Take the example of Venezuela or other countries which did not use that way. But those are exceptions. The general rule is that prosperity has nothing to do with the natural resources of a country. Take, for example, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, honestly, the whole of Europe. There are no major resources here or things that are non-commodity. Take the US, Australia, and the list goes on. Those parts of the world, what they have is human capital. They have human capital in the forms of skills. Their population is highly educated, highly skilled. They can create goods that are in a way more unique, hard to manufacture. And they also had great institutions that try to enable the population to live through society, low corruptions, and those things create wealth. Because wealth in a modern society is just man-made, does not come from nature. And the whole hypothesis that wealth is just man-made in a modern society can be easily seen after the war in Europe. So Europe after the war was devastated, but with some loans from the US was easily able to recover. And the reason is simple, because after the war, things, meaning houses, were destroyed, but the human capital was still there. People still had the knowledge, the skills, and the whole power to rebuild the nations. Well, if you take, for example, Africa, what's missing there is human capital. It can be infinite amount of money brought into Africa, but what's missing is human capital in the sense that take those money and multiply. Because in a modern society, wealth is just multiplied. It's not a zero-sum game. To end up, we saw where the wealth in a modern society of nations come, and that's just human capital. We see why Europe has wealth because they have human capital, why Africa doesn't have, and why all other parts of the world do not have prosperity because human capital, meaning skills and the institutions, are missing. And the whole point is that if a nation makes a plan to become wealthy, to become prosperous, the only way to do that is by increasing their human capital and improving their institutions. The problem with those things is that it takes time, which actually means that the wealth of a nation can be bought and created only through time, if something like discovering oil does not happen. But in general, the wealth of a nation is built slowly by human capital. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Houses and those things, but mostly for a nation and for an individual. Stop.